I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Warner Wound, and this is the 2020 Virtual Windup Watch Fair. Christopher Ward is a brand that should be familiar to Warner Wound readers. Known for producing refined, Swiss-made watches at affordable, direct-to-consumer prices, Christopher Ward has been busy in 2020. We sat down with CEO Mike France to discuss what the brand has been up to and what they have in store for 2021. And now, here's our interview with Mike. Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Virtual Windup Watch Fair. Today I'm joined by Mike France, CEO and co-founder of Christopher Ward. Mike, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Zach.
So perhaps before we get into some watches and what Christopher Ward has been up to in recent history, could you tell those who might not know a little bit about the brand and the role you play there?
Yeah, I'm Chris Ward. We set up three co-founders, myself, the eponymous Mr. Ward, and Peter Ellis back in 2004. We put our first watch on sale in 2005. What distinguished us at the time was we were, I think it's fair to say, the first premium watch brand to go online only, with a philosophy really that was simply to make premium watches accessible to as many people as possible. And we developed a very simple, straightforward business model with that aim. Our entire being is devoted to creating not the cheapest, because we're far from the cheapest watches in the world, but what we would like to think are the best value premium watches in the world. And that's why we get up in the morning, and that's what it's all about.
So how many years has Christopher Ward been in operation?
Now we're into our 15th year, I'm pleased to say. So no longer the young buck on the block. We've even been referred to as the granddaddy of the sort of the disruptor brand, as it were. We don't really see ourselves as a disruptor. Others can infer that title upon us if they wish, but we're just simply trying to create great watches at unbelievable value.
Yeah, absolutely. And from our opinion here at Warner Wound, you do an excellent job. We've been covering you the entire time that we've been around.
Thank you, Zach, and the check's in the post.
People are going to comment.
No, you have followed us from the very beginning, and you've always been very forthright and open in your reviews, and that's something that we respect and something we try and live up to ourselves. Transparency in everything we do is kind of important to us as people and to the brand, and it's good to have conversations with people who A love watches and B have similar values to us. So we count Warner Wound amongst good friends, as well as people whom we do business with, as it were.
So the 2020 has been actually a really remarkable year for the Christopher Ward brand. I think you've had some of your most standout releases in memory. Can you tell us a little bit about the strategy for your product kind of roadmap for this year?
Yeah, well, it's been a pretty extraordinary year for everybody, I think, Zach, hasn't it? And it hasn't quite been in accordance with the very carefully laid plans we were making this time last year for it. But in many ways, it's been a fantastic year for us as well. We've launched, as you say, a number of important products for the brand during 2020. Indeed, the first really significant one was the C60 Sapphire back in May, and we took the view when COVID-19, reared its ugly head, and that people were going into lockdown. We took the view that we didn't want the brand to go dark, and therefore we were in the fortunate position of being online only, of being able to, many of us work from home just as well as we could work in the office, and able to ship because we were shipping around the world already. We weren't dependent on third-party bricks and mortar distribution. So we kept, after 2 days of being shut, of when the world went into lockdown, or the UK went into lockdown, we reopened. and revisited our marketing plans in a sense, because all of the avenues that were available to us up until March 23rd suddenly vanished. So magazine titles that we'd had many years of relationships with closed down temporarily. Airlines, we had always been quite visible on in-flight magazines. They weren't flying anymore. So the curious-minded men who we target, who are interested, we believe, in our brand, we had to go and find where they were. And so one of the things that certainly in the UK was true from March 23rd onwards, as we were all based in our homes, people were watching TV significantly more than they had been previously. In fact, during the course of April and May, TV viewership in the UK increased by 40%. At the same time, most brands, not just watch brands, but including watch brands, had stepped back from promoting themselves and marketing their wares. It's a normal and in many ways a natural reaction to the circumstances everybody found themselves in. We took the sort of counterintuitive view, I suppose, that not wanting the brand to go dark, actually we were going to go on the front foot. And so knowing the numbers that were occurring at that time in terms of TV, we decided to promote the C60 Sapphire on TV in the UK. And within 5 weeks in total, created an ad, a 40-second ad, which started running on May the 1st. And, we were very, very fortunate in that we had great people around us who were able to help us create the ad and write the scripts and shoot it. We were actually the only, other than Her Majesty's government, we were the only brand in April who was shooting an original advert in the UK, which was something I was quite proud of at the time. Not easy to do with all of the COVID restrictions, but the guys created, I think, a fantastic ad around the C60 Sapphire that launched and helped the C60 Sapphire become a major success, the most successful launch we'd ever had. It helped us deliver, really, in the circumstances, incredible results during the course of May and June. In the UK, we were sort of running at plus 75% upon the year.
Wow.
In the teeth of what was, for many, the worst possible situation that they'd ever encountered. So it worked. And it's a great watch, by the way, I have to say. I mean, I think the design team and the technical team had produced a stunning timepiece for us to be able to launch on the TV. And that became the model that we decided to adapt and adopt for the autumn. We knew that September, was going to be very different to May. At the time, at the start of September, we were sort of out of lockdown. People were returning to work. Our government, and I think yours, was encouraging people back to work at that point, whereas previously it'd been stay at home and work from home where you can. So the world was opening up again, slowly, but definitely opening up again. So we knew that the whole circumstance was going to be very different, and we didn't have the same expectation, but chose that moment to launch again a new line, the Super Compressor, which, as you know, that was is the first genuine super compressor in around about 50 years, and again has been a hugely successful launch. And despite the fact that the conditions, I think, are very different now, I think there's a much stronger headwind in some parts of the world. I think there's a completely different view as we enter the autumn compared to May. ironically, as we get deeper into this crisis, I think people are becoming more pessimistic rather than more optimistic, because it seems like we're in it for a long time now. And our government has just recently sort of reversed the get back to work mantra, and we're now being encouraged to work from home again. So a very different dynamic, I think, existing. And of course, we also knew that all of those watch brands or competitors who had deferred from launching back in March and April their new products, as you know better than anybody, the end of August, beginning of September saw a huge plethora of new releases into the market. So whereas in May we were kind of a beacon alone, one of the only watch brand really, certainly in the UK, putting ourselves out there with a new product and with a strong marketing campaign. I mean, the world of competition has arrived like the cavalry, and I'm pleased to say, in September, because we all need the watch industry in a thriving condition. So I was delighted that so many launched their watches, albeit belatedly, and that we're back to something approaching a slightly more normal situation in terms of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been like you said, there's been a lot of releases in the last few months, and it's from our perspective, from a news perspective, it's been exciting as well. But to focus back on you guys, and your releases, you've quite surprised us, I believe, recently with the C60 Lumestone, which was a continuation of your military watches, and first took me by surprise knowing your brand very well. It's very sort of different aesthetic. Could you talk a little about that approach?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the previous three models in our military collection, the Sandhurst, the Cranwell, and the Dartmouth, were all based on, if you like, a retro view about military watches. We'd taken what we believe to be three of the most iconic watches in military watches over the past sort of 50 years, and certainly since post-World War II, and and Christopher Ward dies them in a sense, and they have been, really successful for us. We then wanted to tackle how we would go about creating a watch for the Royal Marines, and Lumestone is the training base for the Marines in the UK, and in conversations with them, because we do all this in collaboration with the armed forces themselves, to make sure that we're picking up on the right design ideas, threads that mean something to them, and that we can then represent in the watch itself. And it was very clear that instead of having a retro, backwards looking sort of design perspective for the Lumestone, it really needed to represent what the Royal Marines are about, which is this very dynamic, modern, forward-looking sort of force, if you will. And so it became very clear that rather than using the retro C65 case, we would be wanting to use the C60, the more contemporary dive case for the Marines. And they're the sort of elite military force that gets dropped into places. Therefore, finding a way of representing that, and we came up with the idea of the internal compass, which they loved, and which we'd never done before, but added another sort of interest to the aesthetic. We of course DLC'd it, and it's got these wonderful shades of gunmetal grey and black about it, which suggests a degree of stealth, which is what the Marines are also about in many of their operations. It's a stealth-driven sort of task force. So we felt that it should be modern, it should be stealth-like, it should reflect some of the activities that they're doing, put all of that into the design pot, and the guys came out with what I think is a really really excellent sort of representation of the best of the Royal Marines. And so it seems they love it, and the Royal Marines love it. The MOD, the Ministry of Defence, who license us to do these watches, love it as well. And I'm pleased to say it's been the surprise packet of the autumn so far for us. It's been quite incredible, the response we've had, which has given us an interesting sort of few ideas about where we go in 2021 in terms of the next generation or the additional ranges and watches we bring out. And I was actually in discussion with the MOD representatives yesterday, talking about 2021 back end, and we've got some interesting stuff coming, I hope.
Very exciting, very exciting. Yeah, it's just I like to seeing you guys do something in the more tactical tool watch side of things, which just was a little bit of a different direction from some of the other more vintage releases from this year. But to kind of kick back to another new release that I'm actually wearing right now as we speak, you released the C65 Chronograph as well as the C60 Chronograph. So your first bi-register chronographs in either of those series. So very exciting.
I hope so. I mean, again, if the C60 is very much a modern tool dive watch. I mean, and a very, very contemporary aesthetic. The C65, on the other hand, is Back to the Future. That has the sort of the inspiration coming out of the end of the 60s, the early 70s, when color was popping off everywhere, and including in watches, as you know. And we've been on that track for a little while. I think in terms of the overall design, the C65 has always been thought of and designed with retro dive in mind. But we've always taken a sort of a largely, until the super compressor at least, we'd taken a sort of quite a cool view about that period, more Sean Connery if you'd like, whereas the C65 Chronograph really moves from Sean Connery into Roger Moore as James Bond, really. Color was just sprouting everywhere in watches at that time. I mean, if you think about, Breitling Top Time, if you think about, things like Aquastar, these were the inspirations that we were really fired up by when we were looking at how we would create a chronograph. And, we were coming out the whole psychedelia area, the pop area, going into glam rock was beginning to take off, and the optimism of the times fueled, such color that eventually it always filters down into all aspects of design and product, and ultimately it came into watches. And we wanted to capture that in the C65 chronograph. So it's I think the Solita 510 bi-compacts really sort of does the job as well, because bi-compacts chronographs were de rigueur at the time. But the color that we're adding into the watch, albeit the blue is a strong blue, but it's very wearable. But it's the color on the subdial, the hand, and perhaps my favorite little feature, which is the white background date wheel with the red numerals on. That small attention to detail, I think, is really, really excellent, and is my favorite part of the entire watch. It's a bit sad when a date wheel is your favorite feature, but I just think it would have been easy not to bother with doing that.
Yeah.
But I just think it just pings the thing in a way that is unexpected and a lovely surprise to the wearer. But yeah, we're really excited by this watch.
It is a beautiful watch, and as I'm wearing, very colorful, which I agree with what you're saying. It has a nice spirit to it. So to wrap up, there's one last launch that I think we should touch on quickly since we're on video, and that is actually a launch that happened earlier today when this airs, and that is that our limited edition, our first collaboration watch together. So, I think just start by saying thank you from us, from the Warner Wound team, for working with us on that watch. We're extraordinarily excited by it. For the viewers, it's the C65 Sandstorm and Sandstorm Blackout, and these are watches that you've graciously let us work very extensively on and design and have a heavy hand in the design, and then you and your team really took it to the next direction and were really wonderful to work with on that. So we really, really appreciate that project and hope that everyone who sees it and gets to have it enjoys it as much as we do.
Yeah, I mean, I could, let me just reiterate that, what you've said. I mean, it was a genuine collaboration, I think. I mean, your design, Zach, your initial designs got us excited, and I suppose the role of people like Adrian and Will was to make sure that they were achievable at a price that we hope is very accessible for everybody. But I do think between us all and you as well, particularly, we've come up with a stunning design. I mean, my personal, I think, by the way, and great name. I think that the name,
Thank you.
which fits very much the early sort of design drawings that you did. So all of these things have a, if they work, they sort of suddenly everything fits together, I find. And and for me, the naming of a watch is really important. And I think the Sandstorm is a great name.
Thank you.
But I think my own personal favorite, as I was saying, is the DLC version, which I think best represents the name, if you like, and is a sort of a real step away from anything we've sort of been involved with before. And I just think we were delighted to work with you. We think we've created with you two stunning watches, and I do hope that the followers of Worn and Wound really enjoy what's been created here.
Making a watch that I think it had a lot of details in it, which I think we really had to push to kind of get right, and it was very exciting. So it's not just a simple collaboration. It was quite the effort, especially on your manufacturing part.
Well, on both parts, Zach. But and don't forget we're waiting for you to accept the offer of coming on board as a designer. We're still waiting. You're welcome to turn up at Maidenhead any day.
Right. Excellent. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks for once again the project that we worked on together, and just for being a very enjoyable person to talk to throughout this year. We've had you on the podcast a few times, so really, it's a great way to kind of cap off the 2020 for us for our work with Christopher Ward, and we really look forward to working with you guys in the future and seeing you in person someday soon, hopefully.